Hey everyone, welcome back. You've been looking into Renault and all their plans for electric vehicles in the future, and
Right.
wow, some fascinating stuff, especially in these excerpts from Calpurnia Notes and Corriere della Sera News. They're really making some big moves. So I'm ready to dive in. Are you?
Absolutely. Let's get into it.
Okay, so first off, Renault's 2024 financials, those were pretty impressive, right? 23 billion euros in revenue and a record 7.6% operating margin.
Yeah, that's
I
amazing.
mean, those numbers are even better than we're seeing from giants like Volkswagen and Stellantis.
It's true. It's really remarkable when you think about how competitive the market is right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it seems like a lot of their success can be tied to their CEO, Luca de Meo, and his focus on, flexibility and efficiency. I mean, getting those kinds of results in this market, it's impressive.
Yeah, he's been really focused on making the company more streamlined and profitable and well, it seems to be working.
Yeah, no kidding. So let's talk about their e-way strategy. This is their big plan to electrify a huge chunk of their sales. They're aiming for over 65% electric or hybrid by 2025.
Right.
And to do that, they've created this whole new division called Ampere, which will focus only on EVs.
Mhm.
What do you think about that? Creating this separate division? I mean, is that a smart move?
I think it's something we're seeing more and more of, in the auto industry. It lets them be more focused and agile. It also shows that they're serious about EVs. I mean, it's not just a side project for them.
Yeah, it definitely feels like they're making a statement, especially with all the competition from, Chinese EV makers. I mean, they're really making a name for themselves globally. It seems like Renault is trying to be the European champion to compete with them.
Yeah, exactly. I think the e-way strategy is a direct response to that. They want to make sure European automakers have a place in the EV market as it grows.
And how do they plan to do that? I'm seeing a lot about their investment in new technology, especially for batteries. It looks like their partnership with Envision AESC to build that gigafactory in Douai, France, is a big part of that plan.
Yeah, definitely. Battery tech is at the heart of the whole EV revolution. Having a good supply chain for batteries that's both reliable and affordable is super important.
Right?
And this partnership lets them control, the quality of the batteries and how many they make. It also means they don't have to rely on other companies as much.
That makes sense, especially with all the supply chain problems we've been seeing in the last few years. But it's not just about controlling the supply chain, is it? It's also about supporting European manufacturing, right?
For sure. Building a gigafactory in Europe is a big deal. It creates jobs, helps the European economy, and makes sure that Europe stays a major player in the EV industry. They're trying to build up a whole European ecosystem for electric vehicles.
Right, and that ties into their focus on sustainability, too. I mean, I'm seeing a lot about how committed they are to reducing carbon emissions, throughout the whole life cycle of the batteries they're making.
Oh, absolutely. Sustainability is key for them. It's not just about making electric cars. It's about making them responsibly, sourcing the materials ethically and being mindful of their impact on the environment every step of the way.
So they're really aiming to be leaders in sustainable EV manufacturing.
It certainly looks that way, and it makes sense considering how much consumers care about eco-friendly products these days.
Yeah, so they're building these high-tech batteries locally, and they're focusing on sustainability. But what about affordability? How are they planning to make EVs accessible to the average person?
That's another big part of their plan. They want to make electric mobility more democratic, and the Renault 5 E-Tech Electric is a great example of that. It was actually named Car of the Year 2025.
Oh yeah, I was just looking at that one. It looks really cool.
It does, and they're planning to price it under 18,000 euros, which is very competitive for a small EV, especially when you consider all the tech and features it has.
Right.
They want to make EVs appealing and affordable for everyone, not just a select few.
Okay, and they're not stopping with just the R5 either, right? They've got this whole pipeline of new electric models coming out.
Oh yeah, they've got 7 new fully electric models planned to launch by 2025. They're serious about offering a wide range of EVs to suit all kinds of needs and preferences. They're not putting all their eggs in one basket.
So it sounds like they are really going all in on this electric future. But before we get into whether they can actually, challenge the Chinese dominance in the EV market, I want to talk about their plans beyond just making cars. I mean, they're looking at this more holistically, right? Like a whole ecosystem for electric mobility.
Yeah, for sure. They're thinking about everything, charging infrastructure partnerships, even alternative fuels. They're not just focused on the cars themselves, they're thinking about the future of transportation as a whole.
Okay, now this is getting really interesting. Let's break that down a bit more. What are some of the things they're doing outside of just manufacturing cars?
Well, for one, they're partnering with Italian highway companies to get control of those fast charging stations.
Oh, wow.
It's a really smart move. If you think about it, one of the biggest things holding people back from buying an EV is range anxiety.
Yeah, that fear of running out of charge.
Exactly. And by making sure there are plenty of fast charging stations along the major highways, they can help ease that anxiety and make it easier for people to, take longer trips in an EV.
So they're basically building the gas stations of the future, but for electrons.
Exactly. And by working with the highway companies, they're using existing infrastructure and knowledge. It's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, and we can't forget their partnership with Eni at the energy company. What's the reasoning behind that one?
Well, Eni knows a lot about energy, right? Producing it, distributing it, making it sustainable.
Hmm.
This partnership lets Renault look into alternative fuel sources like biofuels and hydrogen and develop new ways to charge EVs. It's about thinking outside the box, beyond just batteries, and exploring all the options for a truly sustainable transportation future.
So it's not just about the cars, it's about electric mobility as a whole, all the different parts that make it work.
Exactly. And that's what I find so interesting about their approach. They're not just reacting to the market, they're trying to shape it to create a future where electric vehicles are the norm, not the exception.
Yeah, it's a big vision for sure. But the question is, do they have what it takes to make it happen? Can they really compete with those Chinese companies and become a true leader in this electric revolution? I guess we'll have to dive deeper into that in the next part of our deep dive. Stick around.
Yeah, it really is a fascinating situation. This company, Renault, with this long history of innovation trying to reinvent itself for the age of electric vehicles.
Yeah, it's almost like they're fighting an uphill battle against these Chinese EV companies that have kind of come out of nowhere and are just taking over the market.
Yeah, in a way, it's like David and Goliath, right? But we have to remember Renault isn't starting from scratch. I mean, they have a strong brand, especially in Europe, and a lot of loyal customers. And of course, they really understand the auto industry. They're not just copying what the Chinese companies are doing, they're using what they're already good at and adapting to this new world.
And a big part of that adaptation is their focus on Europe, right? Building a whole ecosystem for EVs in Europe. We talked about the Gigafactory with Envision AESC in Douai, France. Can you tell us a bit more about why making these batteries in Europe is so important to their strategy?
It's not just about having a steady supply of batteries. It's about creating jobs in Europe and boosting their economy and showing that Europe can be a leader in EVs. It's also about not being too reliant on other parts of the world. We've seen how global trade problems or politics or even natural disasters can really mess things up when it comes to global supply chains. By making the batteries closer to home, Renault can avoid some of those risks and make sure they have a steady supply of batteries.
So it sounds like they're trying to make Europe like a safe zone for EVs where they're protected from problems in other parts of the world. But what about the technology itself? Can they really keep up with the Chinese companies when it comes to things like how far the cars can go on a single charge or how fast they can charge?
That's a good question, and it's something Renault is thinking about a lot. They're putting a lot of money into research and development, not just for batteries, but also for things like software and connectivity and self-driving cars. They understand that cars are becoming more like computers on wheels, and they're working with companies like Google and Qualcomm to put the latest technology into their cars.
So it's not just about the hardware, it's about the software and the user experience too.
Exactly. They're realizing that the future of transportation isn't just about building a better electric car, it's about creating a whole new experience for drivers and passengers. And that takes expertise in a lot of different areas, from battery chemistry to artificial intelligence.
Which brings us back to all the different partnerships they're forming and how they're branching out. We talked about how they're working with Italian highway companies to manage those fast charging stations. Why is that such a big deal?
Well, think about it from a driver's point of view. One of the biggest things that stops people from buying EVs is range anxiety, that worry that they'll run out of charge before they reach their destination.
Yeah.
So if Renault can guarantee that there are lots of fast charging stations along the highways, people won't be as worried about running out of power, and it'll be easier to use EVs for long trips.
So they're kind of like building the gas stations of the future, but for electric cars.
Yeah, exactly. And by working with the highway companies, they're using infrastructure that's already there and taking advantage of their expertise. It's good for both of them.
Right. And then there's their partnership with Eni, that big energy company. What's the thinking behind that one?
Eni knows a lot about energy, how to make it, how to deliver it, and how to make it sustainable. This partnership gives Renault a chance to look into other kinds of fuel, like biofuels and hydrogen, and to come up with new and better ways to charge EVs. It's about thinking beyond batteries and exploring all the possibilities for a truly sustainable future for transportation.
So it's not just about electric cars, it's about electric mobility in general, looking at all the different aspects of it.
Precisely. And that's what makes Renault's strategy so interesting. They're not just following the trends, they're trying to create the trends. They want to create a world where electric vehicles are the standard, not just something different.
That's a pretty ambitious goal. But can they pull it off? Do they really have what it takes to make that happen?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? There are a lot of things that could affect the outcome. Things like government regulations, how fast the technology changes, how many people are buying EVs, and of course the competition. It's a complicated market that's constantly changing, so it's hard to predict what will happen.
It seems like Renault is doing all the right things, but the EV market is still so new. It'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds in the next few years.
Definitely, this is a story that's still being written. We're only at the beginning.
Well, on that note, let's move on to the last part of our deep dive, where we'll talk about what all of this means for Renault's future and whether they have what it takes to become a real leader in this electric revolution. Stay with us. All right, so we've talked about a lot, Renault's financial success, their e-way strategy, their focus on European manufacturing, and all their efforts to build this whole ecosystem for electric vehicles. What do you think is the most important part of what they're doing?
I think it's their commitment to Europe. They're not just trying to be a big player in the global EV market. They're really trying to make Europe a leader in this whole electric revolution. Everything they're doing, from building factories in Europe to working with European companies, even their car designs, it all points to this idea of making Europe the center of it all.
Yeah, I see that. Like they're saying, hey, look, Europe could do this too, and we could do it even better.
Right. And strategically, it's a smart move. Europe has a long history of making great cars. They have a skilled workforce, and people there are really starting to want electric vehicles. So by using all of that and building this European-focused EV ecosystem, Renault isn't just competing, they're creating an advantage for themselves.
And we can't forget about how they're trying to make EVs more affordable for everyone, like the Renault 5 E-Tech Electric, with that tight tag under 18,000 euros.
Exactly. Making electric vehicles more affordable is key if they want lots of people to buy them. That means making EVs that are not just high-tech and stylish, but also easy on the wallet. And it seems like the R5 is hitting that sweet spot. It's getting a lot of attention.
It's a good-looking car, I have to admit. So after taking this deep dive into all things Renault, what's your verdict? Do you think they can actually pull this off? Can they really become a leader in the EV market?
That's a tough one. The EV market is so unpredictable with new companies popping up all the time and the technology changing so fast. But I do think Renault has a good foundation, a clear vision, and they're willing to adapt and come up with new ideas.
They're not just sitting around waiting to see what happens. They're out there making things happen, which is exciting to see.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that proactive approach combined with their smart partnerships and their commitment to sustainability gives them a real shot. It'll be really interesting to see how it all plays out over the next few years.
Absolutely. And for those of you listening, this is where your own deep dive really begins. Those reports and articles you've been reading are packed with even more details about Renault's specific models, the technology in their batteries, the ins and outs of their partnerships. So keep digging, keep exploring, and see if you agree with us that Renault is on the right track to become a major player in the world of electric vehicles.
It's a really exciting time to be following this industry, and Renault is definitely a company to keep an eye on.
I totally agree. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to like and subscribe for more insightful explorations into the world of technology, business, and innovation. Until next time.